Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Well, being a parent is so rewarding. There's so many great things that come along with that. A lot of joy, a lot of pride, a lot of great memories until you have a challenge. And a lot of those challenges come from the communication with your child. Doesn't matter how old they are. She is somebody that helps people with that communication, helps parents navigate. I love that she's called Parenting 911, because when you need her, she's there. And we're going to talk to her today and unpack all this stuff on how to deal with our kids in terms of communication and just making life more simple, as it should be. As we welcome Frazelma Lynn back to the program. How are you today?
I am wonderful, sir. How are you today, Steve?
I'm good. I'm good. And this whole thing about communication, this is something that it goes back to, I think, the beginning of parenting, where you're going to come up to a point where you feel you're not getting through.
Exactly.
And it's different in different ages, but that it's going to come up no matter what, whether your kid is 6, whether your kid is 16, there's going to be challenges there with communication. Where do we start with this today, Frazelma?
All right, let's start then at the beginning, because honestly, we start off, most of us, with baby talk. And baby talk is not really a language. So if you start there and your child starts talking that way, then immediately you have a concern. You want to make a drastic change. So we need to start off communicating with real words. Because remember, they are watching us, listening to us, and from the beginning, we are building their vocabulary. So let's just start there. And then as they become toddlers, they're watching us, and we need to just make sure that we are talking in not so much a bark or a harsh tone, but having a conversation with them. That's where they learn to actually listen and to focus on one topic, not bounce all over, and then respond to what we're saying. And we have to do the same with them.
Does it change in terms of that two-way dialogue, whether they're 6 or 16?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so as they grow up, we also have to realize they're developing, correct?
Sure.
That means we have to develop. And most parents, I know we're grown, but we still have to develop, and we have to pivot how we are communicating with them, how we're listening, how we're responding. So even as they develop to, let's just say, 10 years old, there's a change. They develop, then they're 13, there is a change. 16, and we can't still talk to them at 16 the way we did when they were 5. So we have to make sure we too are developing, enhancing our communication skills as they develop.
Would you say it's safe to say that in the beginning, when they're very young, the conversations are going to be different, but developing that dialogue style, you're planting the seed for the future, as opposed to just communicating with, even baby talk, guilty as charged. I think a lot of us have done that because it's fun and it's cute, but you're really not communicating with a child who is a child, but maybe they're a little more sophisticated than we give them credit for.
Very true. Very true. Very true. And so much of what we do, there's something you just said, so much of what we do is about us, but it has to also be about them. So you said, like with the baby talk, it's cute. And we do it, that's for us. That's not for them.
True.
I mean, so much of what we do as parents, we do it more for us and not really for them. So that's when I say we have to make a pivot, that's a part of what I'm talking about as well. We do a lot of things because, as a parent, it makes us feel better. We think it's cute. We think that's a part of it. But is it helping them?
Yeah.
Is it helping to develop them the way we want them to develop? Is it even enhancing our bond with them? That kind
Yeah.
of takes us into another part of the communication because it all should be about bonding. Everything that we're doing should be about bonding, building that relationship, and then strengthening the relationship so that it can sustain through hard times, through difficult discussions, through them growing up and becoming adults. The relationship, if it's built to last, it will survive.
Do you think that a lot of us, when our children are younger, that we engage in that baby talk because we think we'll better relate to them? Yes, I get what you're saying. It's really for us, but we think that we're on their level, but for lack of a better description, we're just stunting their growth and development.
Absolutely.
Mm.
That is so true. We're stunting their growth. We get satisfaction, but it's stunting their growth. Let me tell you, that even goes towards when parents never say no about anything. Well, I know we think that's not communicating something, but that's communicating something too. And again, we're stunting their growth. When we're doing everything for them, we think that's not communication. It is. And guess what? We're again stunting their growth. So we have to be careful what we do, whether it's verbal or not. We have to be careful about how we are communicating. It's the encoding and decoding. It's what are we really trying to transfer over to them? What is it that we're really trying to say, whether it's our body language or the tone of our voice or the words that we use?
And one other final thought on this whole baby talk thing. Let's be honest. You don't want your kids to grow up. You want them to grow up. You don't want them to grow up. So when when they're 6, all right, when they're 3, it's cute. When it's
Mhm.
6, not so cute. Now they're 10, and you're still speaking to them like they're
Mhm.
3, because
Mhm.
you really deep down inside, you don't want your kid growing up. You always want them to be young.
And that's that part of us that we have to pivot and we have to allow ourselves to develop. And that's what I mean. We have to allow ourselves to develop as they develop. And you're so right. We'll even give them nicknames. And they're cute nicknames when they're 1 and 2, but they're not so cute when they get 12. And we're still calling them that, especially if the name is embarrassing.
Hmm.
And so when they're 1 or 2, they don't know it's embarrassing. They just
Yeah.
answer. But when they're 12, they know that that is embarrassing. And we think it's funny and laugh, but we don't like to be embarrassed. So why would we embarrass them and think that it's still cute?
So
It's
two
not.
two points here. I'm speaking today on my son's 18th birthday. Can't even believe he's 18.
Wow.
And when you say 12, yeah, I had little cute nicknames for him, for my kids. And I do remember my daughter was 11 or 12 when she said, "Why are you calling me that? And it doesn't even make any sense." And she was right. And it was just me just being fun. I'm goofy. That's the way I roll.
Mhm.
But when you take it and you look at it from a kid's perspective,
Mhm.
uh, it's not so cool in a lot of regards.
Not so
Yeah.
cool. And sometimes the not so cool part of us that we still try to just kind of make it be cool, that's the part when they're about 12 or 13 that causes them not really to want to hang out with us as much. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're still trying to be that cool that we were when they were 3, 4, and 5. And really, then it didn't matter. But we've got to understand we have to pivot. That's a hard thing for parents That's a hard thing for us to even understand, that we have to make adjustments
Yeah.
as they develop. It's like a child. As they're developing, they notice changes, and when they get to be that middle school age, they almost don't feel comfortable in their own skin. But then there we are, not willing to make adjustments.
For
And we
all of the
have,
reasons that we said,
for all the
and
reasons.
I truly believe the number one reason is you don't want them to grow up. And part of that is I do believe as a parent, well, as a human, we all don't like change. So,
Exactly.
we don't think we're changing that much, even though we probably are. But when our kids, you see the progression as they grow,
Mhm.
and you don't want to make that change because with that change, with your kid's age, comes more challenges, comes more things that you as a parent have to adapt to.
That's right.
How do we make this, for Zelma, how do we make this all easier? How do we make it simple in terms of the communication and all of this?
The best way to make it simple, just realize now, and yes, parenting has its challenges. However, many times we make the challenges even more complex. One, we don't want to make that change. And we know it's coming. We know our children are developing.
Yep.
We know they're going to be these young men and young women. And then we also know that we are the ones responsible for preparing them for adulthood. Now we know it's coming, but the simplicity part here is then allow it to come. And then as they develop and we pivot, don't turn molehills into mountains. Don't blow things out of proportion. Don't just force an idea or something that you want done just because you're the parent. We all know that. But don't just force an issue because you can. And
Hmm.
sometimes we do those types of things. Sometimes, yeah, it's out of frustration about other things going on in life. Sometimes we're just not happy where we are in life. But we have to parent from a calm place and honestly from a peaceful place, because then we can handle the change so much better. It's inevitable. It's coming.
Wow. Um, Lots to process here, but it's also sometimes I believe a power struggle where you may turn that little thing into a big thing because you want them to know who's boss, and
I
it
like
just
that.
doesn't even work that way.
No, now this is the thing. If you're already the one in authority, and you know that you're the one in authority, who are you proving that to?
Well, what if you feel that your authority is slipping? What if now
Mm,
we've gotten to the we're in the middle school age and your kids are, flexing their authoritative muscle to some degree, and there's a little bit of talk back, and my baby, this is not who are you? Where did you come from? Right?
okay, now remember, I'm a retired teacher and school administrator. I actually was an administrator at the middle school. All right. And I loved it, loved it, loved it. But the very words that you have spoken, many parents have said in tears in my office. They would say, "My baby, what's happening?" And they didn't want them to grow up, and they would not just open up. So there were many parents I had to coach through the "my baby is no longer my baby" stage. All right. And just helping them understand they're still that sweet child, but they're growing up. And now you've got to get on a level where you can talk to them about the things they're dealing with. That goes back to the beginning of this
Mhm.
conversation. The baby talk was all for us, not for them.
Yeah.
That point, yeah, we're that the point of us making the adjustments We don't want to do it, but they need for us to do it. They need for us to make those changes and talk to them differently. Now, yes, it should be a power struggle because they're growing up. So if there's not a power struggle, we should be, worried. There should be a flag because at some point, all of us growing up flexed whatever it was we thought we had a little more of, flexed our muscles, flexed our
Mhm.
our mind, our intellect, whatever that is. That's not a time to flex back. That's a time to realize they're growing up. And so now you need to give them a little more rope, a little more responsibility, give them a little more time. So instead of saying, all right, these dishes need to be washed and they need to be washed right now. Now, the question is, do they really need to be washed right now, or do they need to be washed before the child goes to bed? And all of that's on us, how we handle the power struggle. We don't have to handle it. We are the authority already.
How do you handle, and there's a lot to process here. This is good. We're this is so important. We are as parents supposed to put up boundaries and guide them and show them the way. We can't just let, the car go down the street, the kid car go, screeching to each side of the road. But how do you do that in such a way where you're not stifling them, where you're allowing them, you're giving them a little bit of space, but you're also still guiding them at the same time?
Exactly. All right. So in the beginning, the boundaries have to be seriously tight because the children don't know any better, right? They're young. So this is where everything is about prevention. That's why we childproof the house and all of that. It's about prevention, preventing them from harming themselves and then teaching them. All right. So we do a lot of talking in the early years. We're teaching them everything. Well, in those middle years, we don't have to talk as much and the boundaries as the child grows up, then we have to learn that you can push the boundaries back a bit. All right. We can't say the boundaries have to be pushed back at a certain age because it's about maturity. Are they ready for the boundaries to be pushed back? And then, based on the maturity, how far can we push them back? All right. So we're still talking, but we're doing more intervention now because they're talking much more. Then, by the time they are teenagers, 16 and up, 15 and up, maybe. We're doing even less talking. Now, we want to talk more, but
Mm-hmm.
that's not the time. That's the time to listen because we need to hear what are they thinking? How are they processing things? What are their goals? Who's influencing them right now in their lives? So we have to listen even more. And at that age, we push the boundaries back a little. We have to try it. We have to try it. Just give them a little more room, a little more space, change the bedtime, the curfew, all of that. But we have to try it to see if they are ready. We have those 936 weeks from the time they're born until today with you, the 18th birthday of our children, to pour all the goodness, all the knowledge, all the quality we have into them. So as we move those boundaries back, we're preparing them more and more for adulthood.
Well, I'm going to text my son that 936 weeks. Thank you. Wow. Okay. So, in the time we have left, what if now you said you need to listen, especially as they get older, you need to listen more. Makes perfect sense. What if your child doesn't communicate a lot? What about if they're, starting to become withdrawn? And many teens going through a lot of stuff these days with anxiety, depression, bullying, all of that. What if, now it went from this communicative kid down to this as a teen? You don't want to keep talking just to have dialogue. You're trying to engage them. What do you do?
Yeah, because if you keep talking, it's monologue and it's not dialogue because they're
Right.
not responding.
And they're hearing blah 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 blah. And he's just like, all right,
Exactly.
wait till dad's done. All right.
Uh-huh. Exactly. I don't know what he said, but he'll be finished in a few minutes.
Right, exactly.
So you have to understand as they get older, when they are, 16 and up, when they are considered young adults, all right, you say fewer words. You don't need a lecture. They don't need a big spiel. They don't need it. You need fewer words because fewer words will capture their attention more. Fewer words, direct to the point. Honestly, they know we love them, they know we care, but they are dealing with so much on the outside, all right, of home. All right. So fewer words, direct to the point. Then give them an opportunity to just sit there and I say marinate in those few words. Now, they may very well then come back to you later and said, okay, you said this or that earlier. What did you mean? Excellent. Now is
Mm-hmm.
the time to
Mm-hmm.
go in. See, we want to give them everything, but if they're not ready and if they're not receptive, we've done nothing. So give them a few words, direct to the point, and then move on. Give them an opportunity to come to you and ask questions. And make sure you don't ever shut them down when they come to you because then they won't come back.
When we say fewer words, am I correct in adding carefully chosen fewer words?
You are correct. And not only that, let your tone be a tone they can also receive. Now, this is what I
Mm-hmm.
really coach parents on, especially parents of 18-year-olds and above. First of all, they have to have boundaries. The boundaries need to make sense and they have to hold them to boundaries because they'll try to come in and out of your house and do whatever they want, because they think they're grown. Yes, you're grown, but this is, my house, not
Mm-hmm.
yours. All
Yep.
right. So we have to be careful with our words. The best way that I can explain to be careful with your words and your tone is how would you talk to another adult? Not your child, but another adult, whether it's a coworker or a neighbor or whomever. How would you talk to them? They're an adult. The issue is we most times don't know how to treat our children as adults.
Mm.
And once we really learn how to do that, the respect, the tone, the conversation, adult to adult, then the relationship will begin to tighten even more. But most of us have a difficult time treating our adult children as adults.
And I truly believe for most of us as parents, it goes back to the stuff that we identified when they're 6, when they're 7. We don't want them to grow up.
Yes.
And we don't want them to grow up. We do, but we don't. We don't want the change because now we have to deal with change. Many people don't want to deal with change. It's fearful and
Yes.
all of that. And I think that you nailed it there as it just continues. But we need to realize they're adults.
They're
Even if
adults.
they're 16, they're very close to being an adult.
And at that point, when they're 15, 16, instead of us trying to just hover over as parents, we actually need to become more of their mentors.
Yeah.
Because now they are almost to that adult stage. So now you're mentoring them. And it's not the same as when they were 10. It's totally different. And as they grow from that point in, into adults, we want to make sure we're there for them, but we are not so busy trying to tell them every little thing because guess what? They're not going to listen. They are going to do things their own way, at least try it, you know? And
Well,
so if you're not hovering and trying to, I don't know, just be there telling them everything, yeah, you have to step back.
And you can't blame them because it's like the bird that comes out of the nest where, well, wow, my wings work. I can try this. I can do that. Oh, now you're 18. You've got more wings. Your wings are bigger now.
Exactly.
Love your perspective. I love the way that you get right to it, Frazelma, and make it very crystal clear, because there's a lot of emotion involved.
Yes.
Whether we as parents want to admit it, there's a lot. How do we connect with you?
You will connect with me going to www.parenting911.org. That way you can see the courses I have, whether digital or live webinars, the membership subscription, and that's a way for you to schedule a call with me. And let's just talk about where you are, what's going on, what the pain points are, and how we can grow from that point.
There's a place for therapy, but
yes.
I have to say, this is better than therapy in many regards, because you are lightning laser focused on the goal here, where a therapist, and there's many fantastic ones, but they'll be looking at other dynamics where you're going right in for the kill, if you will, to improve the communication, improve the parenting skills and style. And that's fantastic what you do.
Thank you so very much. And yes, I'm not there to judge the parents, but I am there to nudge them so that we can all do better. I don't judge, but I do nudge.
Love that. And you've got the experience as a administrator, teacher, and all of that. Appreciate you so much, Frazelma. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.